Welcome back to Returns and Refunds. We have with us here today Dr.Sibichen K Mathew, Director of Income Tax at the Centralized Processing Center in Bengaluru. In this session, we shall be finding out what should a taxpayer do when she receives an intimation for a demand, or what should a taxpayer do if he wants to submit explanations which cannot be processed in an automatic manner. Sir, so starting off from your reference in the last session about the tremendous increase in speed of processing of returns this year on the new e-filing portal, can you explain the experience of the new portal in respect of how fast the refunds were processed and the reasons for the same?
As I said in the beginning, Subhash, the most positive thing in the new portal is that we have achieved, or we are achieving, or we have the potential to achieve maximum speed, as envisaged in the new portal. Now, I am a taxpayer for last 29 years. I still remember the initial years where to process my return or to get my refund, I had to wait for almost 2 years. That was the stage we had earlier. Then after starting the CPC, first batch of returns were processed in the year 2011, 12, and 12, 13 and all. The average time for processing of return was something around 212 days at that point of time. Later on, it was reduced to 180 days, 150 days, and a year back, it was almost like 80 to 90 days. Then after the new portal has come, when we started processing, the average time we have taken for processing the return is 30 days, which is the best time period in the history of department. Now, the icing is this. Out of this, 18% of return we could process within a day. 22% of returns we could process from 1 to 7 days. And 21% of returns we could process from 8th day to 30th day. That is, within 30 days, almost 63% of returns we could process. Now, you will ask the question, what happened for other cases? You could have processed all the returns. Now, when the return comes, as I said, 18% returns processed within a day. Why? The returns which have been filed, verified, there is no error, there is no prima facie adjustment, there is no existing demand of the previous years. All those cases will be processed fast. Many taxpayers, when they e-file the return also, once they submit the return, there is an option. Verify now or verify later. Sometimes the OTP did not come at that point of time. Okay, they will say, okay, I will do it later. Then they forget about it. Maybe after a week they will do, or 2 weeks they will do. So they will all go out of this first day processing, because they have not e-verified the return. And there are cases where ITRV to be sent. So we have given a time limit. If you don't want to e-verify, you want to download the ITRV, sign it and send it to CPC, we have given time up to 120 days. There also people take time. Actually, we can take a printout and we can send within a week or within 2 weeks or 1 month. But since 120 days are provided, people take more time to verify the returns. That also, because of that also, processing will get delayed. Now, what is this processing stage? Different stages of processing, like inverting the data. Then there is a validation check. Any error is there, we have a validation check. If that is passed through, then we will see the tax, what is the tax for that. Then check up the tax already paid, so determined tax, determined. all these will be matched with the TDS, TDS payment made, the tax will be matched. Then it will be accounted. And this entire process, all these process will happen in a few minutes, sometimes less than a minute. In fact, we got a feedback from a taxpayer. He said, I just submitted my return, I e-verified it. Then I just got off of about to get up from my chair, I saw an email saying that your return is processed. So if everything is okay from the taxpayer side, return will be processed within a minute. Now, as I said, certain cases will get stuck for some time. One category is that defective returns. Now, for certain classes of taxpayers, they need to submit the profit and loss account and balance sheet as per the Income Tax Act. If that is not filed, it will be termed as defective. So, like that, if there is some statutory things should be there along with the return, like tax audit report. Certain taxpayers, tax audit report is a must. If tax audit report has not been filed within the due date before the filing return, then that return also will be considered as defective. Now, there are another category, prima facie adjustments. If there is a wrong claim made, if in the tax audit report certain figure is mentioned, that is not tallying with what is written in what is typed in the return. If there is inconsistency between the attachments, like schedules given by the taxpayer along with the return and with the entries in return, if there is an inconsistency, there will be prima facie adjustment. If there is an incorrect claim made, there also there will be prima facie adjustment. In these cases and all, we need to send a communication to taxpayer and then get a reply, then only we will complete the processing. Same way, certain returns will also have the TDS mismatch issue. Now, you got a TDS statement that this much of tax has been deducted from your income, your whatever money given to you. Based on that, you file your return. But at the same time, the deductor has not filed the return, TDS statements, by paying the due taxes. So, sometimes what happens, if the deductor has not remitted or the deductor has not submitted the statements, the TDS mismatch will happen. So, those cases also, what we will do is, we will wait later, we will process the return now, maybe disallowing the TDS, and later on we will rectify it based on the TDS statement filing by the deductor. Based on that field, we will so how to rectify it. Now, these all will take more time, but when we have defective cases or a prima facie adjustment cases, we necessarily issue a communication to taxpayer to respond back to us. Apart from the prima facie adjustments and the defective cases which I mentioned earlier, there could be lot of other dissolvances also while we process the return. One thing which is very important is that for certain categories of taxpayers, for example, if they want to disclose arrears of salary. So, when they are disclosing arrears of salary and they want to have some deduction or exemption for that, they need to file Form 10E. If Form 10E is not filed, again that will not be allowed. Same way for charitable organization, Form 10B, they should file it. If that is not filed, then their exemption will not be allowed. Again, it will be taxed. Here also, we issue a communication asking for details of that, and there will be such things. And there is another point which we need to note as taxpayer is there is a rule, income tax rule 37B. Now, TDS is deducted on certain income by the deductor. When they paid certain amount, they deducted the tax. Now, if we are not showing the entire receipts in your income tax return, but claiming the entire TDS, this happens. Sometimes you say that you think that okay, this income is not this year's, but deductor has deducted it, but I need not show it. In that case, what you have to do is only proportionate TDS only you should claim this year. So if you claim more TDS and less receipts, that will be hit by this 37BA rule, and that you will be, the proportionate TDS will be disallowed. So that happens. So this is also very important to note it down. And another point which I have missed to tell you, that we get lot of requests from the taxpayer saying that, no, I lost my password. No, I cannot reply, I cannot access the portal. How will I reply in the portal? I got a communication like this. Normally that like any other system, the forgot password option, you use it and reset the password. But there are certain cases where we find, we get requests saying that we don't have even that mobile number, everything got changed. Even if you send an OTP, I cannot confirm. Email ID is changed. That means all the identity process, whatever was there earlier, that is not there. Such cases, we had a lot of serious legal issues earlier. People who are not the authentic representatives or who are the assessees, they were trying to get hold of this password change and get access to the system. So in such scenario, some genuine case also will be there, but you have a employee. That employee was through his email and phone numbers, entire portal you registered. Suddenly after a few years, the employee left without giving those credentials. Such cases, when you apply, we have a process where you need to upload certain documents. When all these documents are uploaded, the income tax authority will go through it and approve it, and then only the password change happens. Many times just before filing the return, the due date, we get a lot of requests for password reset. And we ask, we want immediately password reset. So we have these legal issues where we cannot, without getting documents, we cannot change the password. So we need to follow certain process for that.
Thank you, sir. Sir, now again, in response to that answer, let's say a taxpayer is receiving a communication from the department that you need to submit this information in addition to whatever you've already filed. Does the taxpayer also have a time limit within which he has to respond to this communication from the department?
Subhash, communication related to a defective return. That communication will go to taxpayer. Again, as I said in the beginning, it will go to the registered email ID, and there will be an SMS going to the mobile number. So that is why very important that you give the right email ID. And there we give a time limit of 15 days. So within 15 days, they need to submit the response. Unless and until there is some very emergency situation, generally this is not being extended. This 15 days, within 15 days, they need to submit the response. It is again that response also in an automated way, we will check it up. And if there is any error to be rectified, they can rectify it. If something has not been enclosed earlier, they can enclose it. All this will be taken care of, and then we process the return. So for prima facie adjustment, like I said, arithmetical errors, wrong claims, and all those things, we issue a communication before raising an intimation to the taxpayer. Before making any change in his income, before making any disallowance, we will issue a communication to taxpayer, and taxpayer is given 30 days time to respond back. Online, through the online mode, they can respond back, and based on that, the further processing will be completed and intimation will be sent to the taxpayer.
Thank you, sir. Sir, again, going off from there, let's assume that there's a taxpayer who has received a communication, and after receiving the communication, either the taxpayer could not respond in time, or he has responded and the department has taken a decision which he is not agreeable to. In these both situations, what is the next step that this taxpayer has to take?
The first thing, as you rightly said, Subhash, he gets a communication from the department that there is a prima facie adjustment in your case. This claim is not correct. We are going to add it, and your taxable income will go up. We will send that communication. The communication will contain the details also. Now the taxpayer sends a reply back, and we again go through the system. If it is not accepted, an intimation is sent. Now Subhash is asking that, what is the next way out? At that point of time, taxpayer can file an online rectification application through the portal. Through the portal, it's very simple. They can file again an online rectification application. It will come to the system. Again, we will process that and we will either accept or reject. Now, same way, whatever we reject or accept, based on that, the demand or whatever change of income, that stays in the portal. Now, if the taxpayer says, my application has been filed, again I have filed before the authority CPC through the system, there is one point here is that taxpayer will say that I want to have a lot of reasons I want to explain. That cannot be done through the automated process, because entire thing in CPC is system driven. There is no human intervention at all. So that is why there are certain drop down menus. If you follow that, what we found in our analysis, when we issue prima facie adjustment communication, in 98% of cases, it can be properly responded through online rectification mode, and we have done that. Through online, that much flexibility is there in the online rectification application. But in some cases, maybe there could be a problem that automated system cannot take up the explanations.
So, sir, in such cases wherein there is a particular issue that taxpayer is facing, and the drop-down menus in our portal are unable to accommodate the kind of issue that the taxpayer is facing, and he wants to explain it in a non-automated mode. So, in such a scenario, what is the way out for the taxpayer?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question. Many times, taxpayer object to certain prima facie adjustment by the CPC based on sometimes on a court decision. Jurisdictional high court might have ruled in taxpayer's favor. So these things cannot be incorporated in a centralized processing center, which is an all India based system. Such cases, what the taxpayer needs to do, if the taxpayer, she wants to give more explanation with a lot of evidence or documents before the department, the taxpayer can approach the jurisdictional assessing officer. The assessing officer can request for transferring the rectification rights from CPC. So whenever such requests come from the jurisdictional assessing officer, see, in fact, CPC, Centralized Processing Center, is the back end of the assessing officer. Assessing officer is the front end. He has the authority. So if he gives a request, yes, there is an application for me, I would like to have a look at the submission of the taxpayer, we will transfer the rights to the assessing officer within 48 hours through the ITBA functionality. Then basically the assessing officer system is called ITBA. We will transfer it. Their assessing officer can accept or reject after taking into consideration the documents submitted by the taxpayer online or offline, whatever method.
Thank you, sir. In addition to the different functionalities and the different reforms that have been brought in the new portal, sir, recently CPC has also started issuing provisional registration for institutions under 12A and ATG, etc. So, how has it improved ease of tax compliance for our taxpayers?
Earlier, Subhash, all the charitable organizations, if they want these approvals on ATG or 12A, whatever registrations, they need to apply before the jurisdictional commissioners of exemption. Now, in this scenario, sometimes it may take months for them to get certificates, depending upon the workload and the verification and all those processes. Now, the government thought that if a genuine organization, they would like to do some charitable activity, they should not get prevented because of some bureaucratic delay. Is a genuine organization, they want to collect donation for their genuine charitable activity. After they file for ATG application, it has to be processed. It has, after verification, it will take months, and genuine charitable activity is hampered. Their functions are hampered. So for that, government department has taken this initiative, where all such applications can be filed with the centralized processing center, that e-filing portal, and provisional registration will be given to all those organizations. For 3 years, say if it is a new organization, if they had already got it earlier, they'll get for 5 years, and they can start their operations. Their activity is not hampered. Now I would like to tell you, Subhash, after we started getting this applications in the e-filing portal, we are taking only 7 days for issuing the certificate. 8th day we will issue the certificate. Even for the 7 days, we are keeping the 7-day gap, just in case the taxpayer wants to make any corrections or you want to file a revised application. For that, we are giving that window period of 7 days. By 8th day, now we are able to issue the certificate. Once we start, in the initial days, it took more time in the portal. Now on the 8th day, we issue the certificate. Now almost 1.95 lakh taxpayers of such entities have received registration certificates from centralized processing center. Now in case, see, that doesn't mean that this is the end of it. In case they deviate from the objectives, if there is a illegality in their activity, anytime the exemption commissioner can revoke this registration and cancel the registration. They can conduct investigation, and also based on some risk parameters, they also have some sort of risk assessment. So some cases may be going for limited scrutiny also, in case there is any deviation from the objectives of the particular trust or charitable organization.
Thank you, sir. And that session was very informative and insightful. If you think you know someone who would need this information, do share this video with them. And remember to tune in once again for the last and final session on returns and refunds, where we will be discussing the most important reasons why refunds are held up and how to file grievances in respect of processing, and also the future of the centralized processing center. Thank you.